Hi, everybody. I'm recently back from my trip to Egypt, and honestly, what a mind blower. I'm going to share a lot with you. I think it's probably a lot of people will get all juiced up to go. I have to first tell you that I've really hesitated going. I have known I had to go in this lifetime, but I've avoided it until the right moment. And the final kick was Sarah Breskman saying to me a few months ago, Regina, you know how sweet she is, you really need to come to Egypt with me. And I thought, you know what, you're right. After 20 years of saying no. And I realized I was not ready. I had to reach this stage in life before I could handle what Egypt brought. And I want to share some of that with you. So first of all, I'd like to go back a few decades when the main guide I call him a guide, it's actually a member of my soul group, the one who gives me information, had said that upon my asking, what is our future like? I'm always asking, as you know from the book that Lee and I wrote, The Future Human, I'm always asking about elements of our future and where we're headed. And they said, if you'd like to know where your future is, then you need to go back to Egypt and learn to understand the hieroglyphics. They have not been accurately deciphered yet, but when they are, that will tell you your future. And I thought, okay. I didn't understand it at the time. It didn't make sense to me. I was quite young, but nonetheless, I think I understand what they mean now. So when we arrived in Egypt, we kind of did the classic thing and arrived in Cairo, went to Aswan, and then up the Nile, where we started going into the various temples. And for me, the energy really started picking up once we hit Edfu, because I have a particularly strong affiliation with, respect for the Egyptian god known as Horus, okay? And so that's where the Horus story and imagery really starts kicking in. That was just the beginning. And from that point, I started seeing something that remained consistent throughout the entire trip. And that was this. As we were going into the temple, we started at Philae, went to Komombo, which is the healing temple of light and dark, yin and yang, male and female, which, by the way, the FLFE fellows were with us on this trip with their wives. It was absolutely wonderful to have Jeff and Clayton and their wives with us. It was wonderful. So they were measuring the consciousness of these various places. And the temples still have a pretty high consciousness in the 400s, mid to high 400s. Certainly not as high as they were once upon a time back in the day. So what I was seeing was, as we were going into these temples, I was feeling dust being blown off of them. We have to remember these temples were ignored for thousands of years, and they sat in the dust. And it wasn't until we had really modern transportation that tourists and archaeologists started finding these abandoned temples interesting. Now, some of the Egyptians may have still floated down the Nile and gone into them on certain celebratory days, but by and large, a lot of them were just dusty, blown over with dirt, and left. And so first, if we remember that each one of these temples has a very powerful entity associated with it, they're all dedicated to powerful entities in the Egyptian pantheon entities. And they were not being utilized. The energy wasn't really being fed and didn't really pick up, honestly, energetically. Interest picked up, in the 30s and 40s, after the discovery of King Tut's tomb. But again, not a lot of people. This was not a huge tourist rush until we started hitting cheap air travel, and then the New Age community started really kicking in and wanting to go there and have these experiences. So first of all, you can't really go to the monuments and have experiences. There has to be kind of special arrangements or special permissions. It's the Egyptian government it's very interesting. They take great pride in the fact that they have the most incredible edifices on earth. There's nothing like these temples and these colossi, these statues, and the carvings on the wall telling stories. I'll go back to that in a moment. They take great pride in this. The Egyptians own this. It's theirs. And they let people come and visit it. But it's a Muslim country, and they consider the practices surrounding that as pagan. So if you go in and decide you're just going to sit down and do a little meditation in a temple, you're going to be scooted along very quickly and abruptly by a guard. So you need to know that. I mean, there are ways around it. There are people who know how to work the system and all, but the average person just wandering in would have that experience. But just to give you an idea of some of what was in the walls of Kamumbu, for example, Kamumbu is the temple of light and dark, as I said, and it was a temple of healing. It was a temple of birthing, and they had all of the glyphs having to do with women and childbirth. But not only that, they had glyphs that had to do with surgery and even anesthesia. I don't think we understand how sophisticated these cultures were in the day. So that's just a tiny little glimpse into Kamumbu, for example. But what I started to say a moment ago is that these temples were craving love, craving people to be needing what the temple was made for. And I just kept seeing them pulsing with light when we came in with our intention to give respect and love to the temples and the entities and to have it teach us something. That's what they were built for. They were built for us. All of this information was laid down for the people of the future who were destined to remember once again. Now, remember, at the time, the masses did not understand that much. These temples were built for the priestly class for the most part. So now that we are starting to wake up, we're starting to wake up as a species. We're starting to ask questions we haven't asked before. We're starting to want to know what our future looks like and what our past was telling us about our future. I saw these things pulsing and lighting up and saw that it was a two-way street. As we enter these temples, they're lighting up with enthusiasm, and the beings associated with them are lighting up with enthusiasm that we've returned. And I say returned because many of the people going to these temples lived there before. Not everyone going there, but a very large percentage were there before once upon a time. So they're happy for the new ones and they're happy for our return. So that was really phenomenal to me to see how much the temples needed us and our energy and love and respect and our desire to learn as much as we felt we needed them for the same purposes. So this pulsing light at each of the temples to me was really pretty astounding to see. This is a two-way street. We're not just going with begging bowls, trying to take something away from the experience of almighty people from the past. Some of the people who are going back there actually laid a lot of this down for themselves in the future and for the rest of us in the future. So we have to remember how our own past ties in with the present for many people visiting. Certainly, the group I was with were absolutely delightful. It was such a coherent group of people. Sarah and I just loved them. There was no drama, no hardship and pain that kind of took over the story of the trip. Everybody kind of dealt with their own experience because it was powerful. I mean, we all got sick on the way home. We all got the same virus. But until then, everybody just kind of handled everything, including the power of these spaces. As we were going up the Nile, I already told you a bit about Kamumbu, the crocodile god, and Horus, and how it's the yin and yang of healing. Then Edfu, which is devoted to Horus. And Horus is deeply associated with the 18th dynasty and deeply associated with the light. So we will talk about that in a moment. We continued up, and then we came to Karnak and Luxor. Now, one really interesting experience was the small little sanctuary temple dedicated to Sekhmet. And Sekhmet is the lion-headed goddess who has a reputation of being bloodthirsty and devouring individuals and all this really negative stuff. Personally, she was not done right in those descriptions. As some people who write about her understood, no. She was simply a very fierce lioness mother. People go to her to ask for help. And, some of it's kind of low level, like vanquish my enemies, however that happens. And some of it's I need help with my healing or my son's in trouble. People go for all different reasons, but they go to ask for help from Sekhmet, the fierce lioness mother who can help them. So I knew that I was going to be leading a meditation in that little sanctuary for our group the next day. And I thought, I need to understand this better. And so in the middle of the night, I woke up and I saw the rest of the story in the meditation. And I realized this doesn't have to do just with Sekhmet. This has to do with every guide that we ask for help from, even our higher selves. If you're prone toward asking for your own higher self and soul for help, it doesn't matter. And it's this. I saw, and I talked about it in the meditation, I said this, and people started sniffling and crying because they understood the importance of it. I saw our hands unfurling in the meditation, and I said, open your hands now and offer the thing that you want help with, offer to actually let go of that thing that you want help with yourself. Be willing to let go. Don't make Sekhmet or your guides come and tear an old habit from your hands. Tear someone who's really not working in your life from you. So many times we go and ask for help with a secret desire to not actually let go all the way. Some part of us might be still holding on to something. And what it showed me, and I shared with them in this powerful little chapel, was no, you have to meet Sekhmet, your guides, yourself halfway. Open the hand so the palms are up, and you are literally offering to let go of the very thing that's holding you back that you want help with. And so that was big to me, because that's when I first understood how subconsciously most of us that ask for help are holding on to something. So when you meditate next and ask for help, maybe just remember that and evaluate it a little and look around inside yourself, look around your body, your heart, down into your solar plexus and your stomach. Are you really ready to let go of that? Don't ask for help from another until you're ready to let go yourself. All of us. I say that to me too, to all of us. Then you get some really efficient, streamlined help. So the situation, the meditation in Sekhmet to me was very powerful, and the space itself, the sanctuary itself, and I brought little Sekhmets home to share with my friends. After Sekhmet, for me came the big one. I realized why I was going, and that was to let go of a life that was extremely important within my own incarnation path that was in Egypt in the 18th dynasty. And so this was the famed period of time where the pharaoh Akhenaten and his wife Nefertiti and their children, and they only had one at the time, I think, chose to break free of the priesthood and go out into the desert. And they chose this place out that seemed to be out of nowhere. But the reason it was chosen, and you'll see this in Hathor, you'll see it in all kinds of Egyptian iconography, this with the sun in the middle, okay? And so what Akhenaten discovered, there was a mountain range shaped exactly like that, with the sun, and the sun, at that point in history, the sun rose right through that little portal, that dip in the mountain. And he declared this the land of Akhet Atan, the land of Atan, the sun. History has treated them very unkindly. They said they were heretics, lunatics, that these people were, the people that followed them this was a cult, and that they were worshiping a sun disk. So you couldn't be more minimizing of the situation than that. These are highly trained priests and priestesses, highly trained. Amenhotep III, the father of Akhenaten, very highly trained, and he trained his son in these understandings and principles that if you're going to send your appreciation to a god, make it the sun of our solar system that gives life to all things and has immense eternal wisdom. So this was politically a bad move. The priests of the day were used to collecting large sums of money from the masses to help them with their little issues, not little, anyone's issues in life, whether it was to have a smooth birth or grow a crop or bake your bread. There was a god for everything, and they would take money from you to intercede between you and the gods on your behalf for money. Well, this had gone on too long and too far, and Akhenaten said he had disdain for the priesthood and their corrupt practices. And so when he broke away and built this incredible city, Tel Al Armana is the more commonly known name. When he built this city, he put himself and his family in a great deal of danger, as it turns out. The story did not end well. We happen to have a wonderful guide named Vivian, PhD in Egyptian history. She understood also she could read the hieroglyphics, and she understood the more up-to-date modern version and interpretations of what happened. And as I had understood, she validated that this did not go down well. All the primary people in the family were killed. They were poisoned. And the idea was to rid Egypt of that bloodline. No more nonsense and talk of going away from the priesthood, the Amun priesthood. Amun-Ra was what they worshipped. And instead, eradicate these people so they don't perpetuate this belief that you don't have to use priests, that you can go directly to source. You don't need priests. So interestingly, when we got to the new Grand Egyptian Museum, which was incredible, it is a very beautiful building, very modern, very well done, restaurants inside and everything. We did not have a lot of time, so I asked our guide if we could head right to the King Tut exhibit. And so she took us there. And when we got to the part where they were modern, I guess using radiology and lasers, they were able to put together a depiction of what his body, spinal column, his face, King Tut's face would have actually looked like underneath all those cloths. And some of you may have seen these renderings. She said, you can see here what happened. This looks like disease, but we believe he was actually poisoned. So they were not just poisoning Akhenaten and Nefertiti, they were poisoning Tut as well, who now is believed to be their son. A new book was written on the lineage of the 18th dynasty, and they say there's no doubt now that, because there's been speculation that he was born of Akhenaten impregnating one of his own daughters, and this is who Tut was. And the new evidence, anyway, is suggesting that's not true. King Nefertiti had this boy, and of course he died at a very young age and was thought to be quite defective. And they said, and our guide said what I've also been shown, that no, he was poisoned. So they fairly well eradicated that bloodline. There may be one of the daughters that continued on. I'd be curious to know. I don't know the answer to that, and I want to check into it a little bit more. But by and large, they got rid of him, went back to the old ways. And I thought, I've got to tell you this. Okay. This has been going on for years. Sometimes when I'm sitting with one of my interviewees, I see into their past lives. I'll see who they are, or who they were. And it's disconcerting because I'm looking at them kind of like, well, I'm seeing who they actually were in another time. And some of them were that Amun priesthood who killed the followers of the sun, as they're called, followers of Horus, the followers of the sun, and the royal family. And I guarantee you all those players are back. And those players are controlled by the same hidden force that we talk about all the time. The force with bony old fingers hiding behind the public faces, which are going down these days, but still trying to cling to control. The Amun priesthood is alive as it ever has been. It's just using media and education to I'll in another show I'm doing on Gaia, I'll expand on that further, but basically to misdirect the public, misinform the public, control the public. So I take this very personally. In fact, this lovely little pendant I have on, the one I normally wear is my main one, but this one I'm wearing because this is the hands of the sun reaching down to give life to all beings, all things. And you'll see this a lot in the glyphs where Akhenaten and Nefertiti are. You'll see this very symbol reaching down to them and their little girls. And children and little girls, for the most part, are shown in those glyphs. So it's an honoring of the sun, which, gosh, if there's one thing we should honor, maybe that's it. Just go out. We know that. We know what it does to our mitochondria, energy systems, our pineal gland. They were right, but they knew. They were priests and priestesses. They knew what the sun does to the human being on a multidimensional level, all the way down to the physical. So anyway, I take it personally. We're back. The followers of the sun are back. They're back. And we're still playing out this game. So we have to decide, are we going to represent the light, and are we going to stand in it and mean it and speak up when we have to? That's what that's about for me. We get up to the Giza Plateau and the pyramid. And by the way, along the way, the women had fun. I mean, we bought Egyptian oils and it was so fun, you know, jewelry like this little thing, and cotton and all that, cotton dresses. It was really, really fun. But now we're on our last day and we're at the Giza Plateau, and everyone's going into the pyramid. I did not choose to go in. First of all, I had a problem with my back at the time, so I couldn't have gone through that crawl space, but I wasn't planning on going before I had the back injury. And for me, it was very simple. First, let me say, for a lot of the people on the trip, that was one of the most incredibly, if not the most incredibly powerful experience they had. My most powerful one was in Luxor, when I literally stomped the ground with my energy and reclaimed my place as a follower of the sun, and that we're back, and we're back in numbers, and we're here to heal and bring light back. For many, it was the pyramid. So two of the people that I'm close to that went in the pyramid went in, and the first words they heard going through the crawl space was, "This isn't for humans." Okay, that's why I didn't go in it. The pyramids weren't built for humans. But then again, many of the people going back to explore the pyramids weren't human back then either. We know that we're a planet of hybrids, and many of the people that go through the pyramids now and just eat that energy up with a big spoon may have been there as one of the species that was building the pyramids to begin with. So that's just my hypothesis on it. So do what you want with it. It's my take on it. But again, I just want to say many claimed it as the most powerful experience, and I bypassed it. What I did was I sat literally in a restaurant right across from it, in the main house that looks right out on the Great Pyramid. And as I was sitting there by myself, all of a sudden I thought, and at that time, the people in my group were climbing through the Great Pyramid. They were in there. And so I closed my eyes, and I don't know what I was going to do. I just closed my eyes. I thought, I don't know what I was going to do. I didn't have an idea in mind, but something happened. I closed my eyes looking toward the pyramid, and boom, I was somewhere else in another time. And this is the exciting part for me, one of the most exciting things on the trip. The light was kind of bluish, and I was witnessing a very tall person, by the way, like twice the height of the human species, but human looking, walking slowly, doing whatever they were doing there. And I saw a couple of normal-sized humans as well, very peaceful and calm. But what was happening, what was creating the bluish light, I looked up and I started to look around, and I was inside the holograph of the pyramid. Before the pyramid was created, I saw that there was a holograph of it. Now, when you think that humans can do holographic technology right now, and we're not all that bright, relatively speaking, it's pretty obvious that holographic technology has been used throughout Earth and every other planet's history. So we keep asking, how is it that these stones lined up so perfectly, that the degrees were absolutely perfect with humans building this? What I saw was they were building into a holographic template, no different than just putting a pattern, except 3D, on some fabric to cut out for a skirt or whatever. So I just contemplated that for a bit, and I thought, oh my God, that actually makes sense. So I told a couple of other people. One was a young engineer, and he said, oh my God, that makes perfect sense. The technology would have been available because, as we know, the pyramid, as anywhere, Robert Edward Grant thinks it's in the 30s, 30,000 years old. John Anthony West told me he thought maybe 35,000. The Hermetics say 85,000. It is rumored that Robert Schoch, when he first saw it for the first time, commented he thought it could be as much as 100,000 years old, but he's not putting that down in writing. And we know that it's not what we think. It's not 6,000 years old. It was back in a time when very advanced species were around the planet. They were in Atlantis. They were in Lemuria. They were in Egypt. Egypt is a very, very ancient culture. According to the Hermetics, it dates back as much as 200,000 years, meaning it was concurrent with Atlantis. And like when I was asking about one anomaly about, wow, well, how did this thing from that culture get over here many years ago? They said, well, you do understand until very recently and even recently, there's always been air travel. That's always been on your planet. In other words, there's always been species and very sophisticated technologies, including humans in our past. So, in any event, these were concurrent cultures. Of course, they had holographic technologies. And then I saw they used it not only for that, but they used it to plane some of the faces of these colossal statues, which are absolutely perfect in their likeness from one side to the other. Perfect to the millimeter. And we know they used, according to Christopher Dunn's work, it's obvious, they've used very sophisticated technology to carve it. But I saw they were putting holographic masks over those as well. So take it for what it's worth. This is my vision while I'm blanked out eating Indian food across from the pyramid. And but I thought it was a substantial vision if there's truth in it. And I would really like to put that up for review for other people to take a look at and think, is this possible? If so, it answers a lot of questions. And it wasn't used just in Egypt. It was used around the planet and with other pyramids as well. The other thing I just wanted to mention, if you do go to Egypt and you go to some of the I think Saqqara, the step pyramids, ziggurats, many years ago, because people have different experiences at those. Many years ago, when I was living in Sedona, I wanted to put a step pyramid in my backyard. And I was talking to my soul group, and they said, well, if you do that, you might want to talk to the neighbors first. And I thought, what? Well, that's not happening. Why would I do that? And they said, oh, you'll need permission. I thought, they're not understanding how this neighborhood thing works. They said, when you put a stepped pyramid anywhere in the world, stepped pyramids draw the energy down, and then they start distributing it through the earth. And they said, if you build one here, you're going to affect this entire area. So be careful what you build. And I thought, I didn't build it. I thought, okay, that's interesting. Whereas these pyramids, smooth-sided pyramids, are directing the energy for the most part upward. And we know that, according to Christopher Dunn again, that these are power devices. The Giza pyramid is a power device, power generating device. So anyway, I just wanted to share that little one with you. So if you do go to Egypt and you are at a step pyramid, you might remember, feel what it feels like. See if the energy is different, if it has more of a compressing feeling versus a lifting feeling. Just an experiment you might run on yourself. I'm just telling you things that I've been told through the years. So anyway, just to wrap it up, I was very interested to see that holographic image that was going to become the Great Pyramid. They were going to build this, the stones would basically almost magnetize right into place with the technology they were using. So that was wonderful. And I put it out there to anyone to examine and look at and see if this makes sense as a reasonable explanation for why they're so perfect. Meanwhile, I'm going back. I didn't get nearly enough done, but with these insights, now I can go back because I went just with no real understanding of what to expect at all. And I want to go back and now use some of these understandings to put into place and really work more with the temples and do my part in helping honor them and bring them alive and allow them to feed me in return. So it was just an exceptional experience. And for me, probably the most powerful experience of my life to reclaim my energy from a time that was very difficult and devastating, where the lives of a lot of good people were lost. And again, I'm talking the 18th dynasty. The way it ended was very messy. And I just needed to reclaim the purity of what that mission was for myself again. So anyway, thus wearing my little followers of the sun symbol. So that's it. That's my little field trip to Egypt. And hopefully you got a couple of interesting little things out if you ever choose to go one day. I'd wait till you're ready because it's powerful. And I highly recommend it if that day finally comes for you. And so until next time, just sending y'all a lot of love. And thank you so much for watching. And if you like this content, please feel free to sign up for my newsletter or even support it through Patreon, because I have a little crew of people that I need to pay to put these videos out. And so that would be very helpful. Okay, bye for now. If you like this content, please feel free to help by donating to Patreon for as little as $5 a month. Helps keep the lights on, the pieces edited, social media rolling, etc. for my wonderful little crew. In addition, you can sign up for my newsletter. That'll give you access to a download of this amazing human origin story that you've likely never heard before. I think you're going to love it. Thank you.